morning, everybody. So today we are continuing our series on being church, but I've titled today's talk, Searching for More Puzzle Pieces, and hopefully by the end you will understand why. So we've been looking during this series at the early church in Acts 2, 42 to 47. They devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to fellowship, to the breaking of bread and to prayer. Everyone was filled with awe at the many wonders and signs performed by the apostles. All the believers were together and had everything in common. They sold property and possessions to give to anyone who had need. Every day they continued to meet together in the temple courts. They broke bread in their homes and ate together with glad and sincere hearts, praising God and enjoying the favor of all the people. And the Lord added to their number daily those who were being saved. So over the past couple of weeks, we have had some great talks looking at being devoted to the apostles' teaching, being devoted to fellowship, and being devoted to prayer a couple of weeks ago when Aaron spoke. But the theme that I was given for today was devoted to hospitality, looking at how the believers were devoted to breaking bread, both in the context of taking communion with one another, but also sharing meals. So perhaps another way that we could say this is that as followers of Jesus, we should be devoted to sharing food. So food is a very funny and powerful thing. Most people would agree that the most basic and fundamental things that we need to survive are air, water, and food. Without these three things, we cannot live. When was the last time you heard someone get really excited about breathing air? Apart from maybe Anna just a minute ago when she was talking. Maybe we should be more excited about breathing air. From time to time, especially in hot climates, you will hear people get excited about having a cold glass of water to drink. But food, we use food to express ourselves. Ask anybody from a different country about their culture, and it won't be long before they start talking about food. Food unites us. We use food to celebrate, to mark special occasions. Sharing a meal with another person is an intimate thing. Food can evoke powerful emotions, create memories, and build lasting bonds with other people. And it doesn't even have to be good food. Some of my most memorable moments and meals that I've shared with other people are ones where the food was really terrible. And either that was because of some cooking disaster that I've had, or because the food was just plain bad. And yet still, I will remember those meals and the people and the relationships that I had during those times. And it doesn't have to be some fine dining experience in a fancy restaurant either. So my husband Dan and I have recently purchased a house. We haven't officially moved in yet, for those of you who are wondering. But for those of you who know our story, you'll know that this was a big moment to celebrate. It's taken a long time for us to get to this point. And so the other week we had our small group round, and although we didn't have any furniture, we all sat around in our camping chairs eating pizza that had been delivered off of plastic plates. Now, I hadn't taken a photo. I wish I had taken a photo of that evening because it was a precious thing to do with our friends, and that memory will be with me for a very long time. What I did manage to find, however, was this, and hopefully you'll be able to see it. This was a Facebook post that came up on my time hop the other day from 2016. And this was when I was living in Australia. For those of you who can't read the caption, it says, "We don't have a heater or any furniture, and we're eating food from an old pizza box and drinking tea from a bowl because we didn't even have enough cups and mugs. but I'm surrounded by people that I love, telling stories of killer buffalo, moose, and bears. Hashtag making memories, hashtag happy heart. In that picture, you can see 6 people, and every single one of them is from a different country. Hence the moose and the bears. I definitely was not sharing those stories. But we were sharing what little we had, and we were filled with joy. So given all of this, I don't think it's a big coincidence that a lot of Jesus' teaching was based around food. Some of his most well-known miracles involve food. Jesus spent a lot of time going to people's homes to eat food and to share meals with other people. And during the last moments on evening here on earth, sharing a meal with his friends, he gave us the Lord's Supper, the breaking of bread and the drinking of wine as a way to remember him. Because food also reminds us of times that have passed. So what about hospitality? In recent years, the term hospitality has started to become a term for a hobby or thing that people enjoy doing. And that's great, but they often say that they enjoy hospitality when what they really mean is that they enjoy hosting family and friends, cooking food, or having a nice kitchen so that they can host large dinner parties. And I don't have a problem with that. I personally am also a person who enjoys doing those things, but it isn't the original meaning of hospitality. For true hospitality, you don't have to have the perfect house that is kept immaculately clean all of the time. And you don't have to be a 5-star chef, thank goodness, to be able to offer hospitality to other people. So some of you might have seen recently that Pete Gregg had a post about this on Facebook. He calls this idea of hospitality, where you have your friends around and you have a nice meal, actually the gift of a box of chocolates, which he jokingly says starts in the IKEA catalogue. Biblical hospitality, however, starts in the heart. It allows for interruption, it goes the second mile, and it welcomes inconvenience, even when your house is an absolute mess. So the Greek word for hospitality that has been translated in our Bible is philoxenia, which literally means love the stranger. This word is a combination of 2 ideas. Firstly, philos, which is one of the 4 Greek words used to express love. In this case, brotherly love, or the kind of love you have for someone who is close to you. And secondly, xenos, a word used to describe people who are strangers or foreigners. So biblical hospitality is when we treat outsiders and those who aren't like us with the same sort of affection as we would those who are closest to us and are most like us. Hospitality causes us to step outside of our comfort zone. It stretches our boundaries and our views of the world. It requires us to be intentional about not just demonstrating love to all people, but especially to people who are foreign to us, people who come from different spaces than our own, people who do things differently than we do and value different things than we do. When we practice hospitality, we demonstrate the kingdom and the gospel itself by the good news that God is welcoming all people, all outsiders, everyone into his kingdom. So I want you to picture what it must have been like for those early disciples of Jesus that we read about in Acts. For Jewish believers at the time, at Pentecost, following Jesus from that time, everything that they once thought that they knew has just been blown wide open. People from all nations and all tongues have heard the gospel being proclaimed in their own language. People are being added to their number daily, and not just Jewish people, but Gentiles too. Jesus has gone, he's ascended to heaven, and they're now trying to figure out what to do. So what do? They devote themselves to prayer, to the teaching of the apostles, and they worship together, but they also eat together. How strange must that have been? I don't think sometimes we stop and think about what an odd time this must have been for the followers of Jesus. Slaves were eating with their masters. Jews were eating meals with the Gentiles. There was local people from Jerusalem. There was foreigners joining them from all around the world. And they're eating together. And I bet they talked a lot. I bet they were asking questions. What do you think this means? What was it that Jesus said? I can't exactly remember. I don't understand that. What do you think? Sharing stories with one another. Trying to remember the different things that they heard Jesus say. And what does it say about these people? It says that all of the believers were together and had everything in common. They ate together with glad and sincere hearts. In his book, Reaching Out, The Three Movements of the Spiritual Life, Henri Nouwen writes this: hospitality means primarily the creation of free space where the stranger can enter and become a friend instead of an enemy. Hospitality is not to change people, but to offer them space where change can take place. It is not to bring men and women over to our side, but to offer freedom that is not disturbed by dividing lines. Friends, in a world that is increasingly divided, and a society where the common narrative says that you can't be friends with the people who have different views or opinions from your own, we have a role to play. People in our world today don't know how to have a conversation with someone who has different ideas from their own without getting angry or offended. We have lost the art of respectful disagreement. And people don't know how to relate to others from different worldviews, backgrounds, social status, or areas of society. We keep to ourselves, and we keep to the people who look and act like us, because that's safe and that's comfortable. But Jesus said that people would know that we are his disciples by the way that we love one another. Not just the people that we like, the ones that look like us, or the ones who talk like us, or even the ones that we agree with and who vote the same way that we do. The good news that we are called to represent in this world is that Jesus welcomes everyone into the kingdom. And so our job is to practice that hospitality and to model to the world what it looks like to love the foreigner, the stranger, the people who we consider to be different from us. And may we as a church never become a church that is filled with cliques or groups of people where you can only join or feel like you belong if you act a certain way or meet certain criteria. May we never be that church that only welcomes in certain people. And may we never become a church where everybody thinks or talks or looks the same. Because if we do, we are the ones who miss out. the early church was a beautiful mixing pot of diversity. And everybody had something to bring to the table. Because here's the thing. Take a look, just briefly now, at the people who were around you in this room. We're quite a random bunch of people, aren't we? Actually, and I love that. I love that all of us bring different things. And yet we are all made in the image of God. And yet we also look different. We all have different stories. We have different backgrounds. We have different life experiences, perspectives, and the way of looking at the world. And the way that you see God, the ways that you have seen and experienced God move and work in your life is different from the way that I see God. And so when you share your stories with me, when you share your faith and your experiences of God, my view of God gets bigger and it expands. And when I share with you my stories, my experiences of God, and my faith, your view of God gets bigger and expands. And so together, as we ask questions and we wrestle with different ideas and opinions, as we push our boundary lines just that little bit further open, or we open our eyes to the possibility of something different, we get new and different glimpses of Jesus. And it's a deeper, richer, more beautiful picture of who Jesus is. And we fall even more in love with him. So it's a bit like putting together a jigsaw puzzle. But this jigsaw puzzle never ends. It just gets more beautiful. Because God is so great. He is so mysterious. He is so holy that we will never understand all of him on this side of eternity. All we can do is dedicate the rest of our lives to searching for different pieces of the puzzle. And you've got a piece. And I've got a piece. And you've got a piece. And every single one of you sat here in this room and who is watching online, you've all got a different piece to bring to the puzzle. And all of the people that we come in contact with as we go about living our lives, we all have a piece to contribute. And I want to see your piece. I want to see how you see Jesus. I want to know and get a glimpse of what I haven't seen yet. Because Jesus is beautiful. And I want to know him more. And I want to love him more. And you can help me do that. So I can't just talk to the same few people all of the time. If I do, I'll get the same pieces over and over again. I can't just talk to the people that I like or the ones that I feel comfortable with, those who are the same as me. Because if I do, I will have huge gaps and missing pieces in the puzzle. And so I need to step out of my comfort zone and I need to go searching for more puzzle pieces. Is it difficult to do that? Yes. Is it uncomfortable? Yes. Is it worth it? Absolutely yes. I've recently been watching The Chosen, and one of the many things that I've been struck by this TV program is how so many of the conversations that take place between Jesus and his disciples are over meals. They all sit together, eating, sharing a meal together, asking Jesus questions. And what a random group of people those disciples were. Talk about a melting pot of different backgrounds, social status, education, experiences. Would it have been easier for Jesus if his disciples weren't made up of zealots and tax collectors and fishermen and people well educated? Probably. But it wouldn't have been as exciting. And our view and the stories that we get from our Bible, from those disciples of Jesus in those early days, would have been nowhere near as exciting. And we've been missing out on so many different parts of who Jesus is. Luke 24, on the road to Emmaus. Now the same day, 2 of them were going to a village called Emmaus, about 7 miles from Jerusalem. They were talking with each other about everything that had happened. As they talked and discussed these things with each other, Jesus himself came up and walked along with them, but they were kept from recognizing him. He asked them, "What are you discussing together as you walk along?" They stood still, their faces downcast. One of them, named Cleopas, asked him, "Are you the only one visiting Jerusalem who does not know the things that have happened there in these days?" "What things?" he asked. "About Jesus of Nazareth," they replied. "He was a prophet, powerful in word and deed before God and all the people. The chief priests and our rulers handed him over to be sentenced to death, and they crucified him. But we had hoped that he was the one who was going to redeem Israel. And what is more, it is the 3rd day since all this took place. In addition, some of our women amazed us. They went to the tomb early this morning, but didn't find his body. They came and told us that they had seen a vision of angels who said he was alive. Then some of our companions went to the tomb and found it just as the women had said, but they did not see Jesus." He said to them, "How foolish you are, and how slow to believe all that the prophets have spoken. Did not the Messiah have to suffer these things and then enter into his glory?" And beginning with Moses and all the prophets, he explained to them what was said in all the scriptures concerning himself. As they approached the village to which they were going, Jesus continued on as if he were going further. But they urged him strongly, "Stay with us, for it is nearly evening. The day is almost over." So we went in to stay with them. When he was at the table with them, he took bread, gave thanks, broke it, and began to give it to them. Then their eyes were opened, and they recognized him, and he disappeared from their sight. They asked each other, "Were not our hearts burning within us while he talked about us on the road and opened the scriptures to us?" They got up and returned at once to Jerusalem. There they found the 11 and those with them assembled together and saying, "It is true, the Lord has risen and has appeared to Simon." Then the 2 told what had happened on the way and how Jesus was recognized by them when he broke the bread. There's been much debate amongst people as to why Jesus didn't reveal himself until he broke bread at the dinner table. But given that Jesus was always intentional about the way that he did things, I think it would be safe to say, and most people would agree, that there was some meaning behind it. Perhaps it was because the table is a regular place, a part of our everyday life. Maybe this represents the way that Jesus wants people to know him on a basic, core, everyday level, practical and authentic, not fancy or fussy or only for a certain class or rank, for everybody, every day. Or perhaps it was because there is something relaxing about sitting with other people around a table. People are calm and unhurried, there to rest and fill their bellies after a hard day. The table is a place of intimacy and friendship, and a place where relationships are strengthened. But whatever the reason, I find it interesting that Jesus had been talking to these two men, sharing with them and explaining the scriptures to them the whole day as they walked on their journey. But it wasn't until these two men invited Jesus into their home, offered him hospitality to the stranger, and broke bread together, that Jesus was revealed to them. So let's be a church that is devoted to hospitality, devoted to breaking bread and sharing food with one another. Let's be a church that is devoted to searching for more pieces of the puzzle so that Jesus can be revealed. Amen. So in a minute, we are going to take communion together, which is, of course, the ultimate representation of hospitality. There is room for everybody at the table, and Jesus welcomes all into his kingdom. But there's just a couple of things that I want to add before we take communion together. And the first is this. This doesn't end at the end of this service. Actually, the teas and coffees afterwards be a great opportunity to practice this, to get to know other people, talk to different people, get to know the different parts of our wonderful and diverse and beautiful church. And with that comes a challenge. And I want you to know that I'm speaking this challenge to myself just as much as I am to anybody else. Because this is not just for extroverts. I'm really sorry, introverts. And I say that as a very strong introvert myself. We cannot use personality types to put us in a box and use it as an excuse to not do things. I was talking to the Create team about this a couple of weeks ago. The thing that I find really helpful about these kind of tests and personality types is it tells me the things that I'm good at and the things that I will find easy, but it also shows me the things that I will find really hard. I am an introvert. I have the capacity to be horribly awkward in social situations. I find the end of the service with the teas and coffees really hard. Small talk, awkward. But I know that about myself, and I have learned to find tools to help me do it. And I've learned to at least try to embrace the awkwardness of it. So I would love to challenge you, if you're an introvert and you're thinking, oh my goodness, take a step of faith and embrace the potential for awkwardness and see what you find in other people, because you have something to offer as well. And if you don't share that with other people, then we're all going to miss out. We're all going to miss out. And so as we take communion now, and if the band want to come up, that would be wonderful. I want to challenge you, if you feel up for it, to go and find somebody here in the room that you don't know very well or that you don't talk to often, and just briefly share with that person what you love about Jesus, what you see about Jesus, and then break bread and take communion together. Pray for one another. And if it's less scary, then feel free to kind of pair up with somebody else that you know. That's absolutely fine. We can do it in pairs. And I do also want to say this. There are some people here who that's just going to be too hard. And there are many different reasons why that would be, but that's okay. The last thing I want to do is to make anybody here feel pressured or excluded or forced to do anything that they don't want to do. So if that's you, that is absolutely fine. Jesus knows where you are. He can meet you where you are, whoever you take communion with, whether it's a person that you love, that you know, that you trust, that you feel safe with. That's absolutely fine. But if you feel able to and you feel brave enough to take that step, to go and find someone that you don't know, then I would really encourage you to do that.